The day my sister stole my husband was also the day my parents chose her over me. For 5 years, I built a life without them, a life of quiet dignity and hard-won peace. Then they saw the diamond on my finger and the luxury car in my driveway. Suddenly, the daughter they had cast out was worthy of their love again. Let me start from the beginning, because the betrayal goes deeper than a single act. It is a pattern woven into the fabric of our family. My ex-husband, David, and my younger sister, Grace, had always been a little too friendly. I dismissed my unease, blaming my own insecurities. David and I had been high school sweethearts, together for 8 years before marrying at 24. The pressure, subtle but constant, had come from both our families. Such a perfect match. They'd say, "Don't keep the poor man waiting." So I did what was expected. The marriage was not the fairy tale promised. We grew distant. Our conversations reduced to logistics. I threw myself into building my graphic design business, finding solace in my work. He, as I would discover, found solace elsewhere. I came home early from a client meeting one Tuesday, fighting a migraine. The house was silent, but familiar laugh, Grace's laugh, floated down from our bedroom. My stomach dropped. I didn't storm in. Instead, I stood frozen in the hallway, listening to the muffled whispers, the intimacy in their silence more damning than any noise. When I finally pushed the door open, the scene was both a cliché and a unique, personal hell. The shock on their faces was almost comical. I didn't scream. I just said, "Get out, Grace." She scrambled, weeping, clutching her clothes. David reached for me. "It's not what you think," he began. I turned and walked out of the bedroom, out of the house, and got into my car. My first, foolish instinct was to drive to my parents' house. It was only a 20-minute drive. In my shattered state, I yearned for my mother's arms, for my father's protective rage. But when I arrived, breathless and tear-stained, they were already waiting at the door. They didn't look surprised. They looked resigned and, worse, disapproving. "Don't cause a scene, Anna," my father said, blocking the doorway. My mother stood behind him, wringing her hands, her eyes avoiding mine. David called. My mother said quietly. He explained there was a misunderstanding, that Grace was upset and he was comforting her. "A misunderstanding?" My voice cracked. "Mother, I saw them in my bed. There is no misunderstanding vast enough to cover that." My father's jaw tightened. "Grace is fragile. She's been through a lot. David said you've been cold, distant, married to your work. Maybe if you'd been more present." "Are you blaming me for this?" The words felt like glass in my throat. "He cheated on me with my sister. These things are rarely one-sided, Anna," my father intoned, as if reciting a law. "A marriage takes work from both people. Running here instead of fixing your problems is typical of your impulsivity." I looked at my mother, pleading silently. She glanced at me, then away. Maybe you should hear David out. Forgive. Grace is so sorry. She's devastated. Think of the family. The scandal. That was the moment my world didn't just crack. It atomized. The betrayal by David and Grace was a searing wound, but my parents' reaction was the poison poured into it. They were worried about Grace's fragility, about David's perspective, about scandal. They were not worried about me. I was an afterthought, the inconvenient wife who couldn't keep her husband happy or her sister at bay. "I have nowhere to go," I whispered, the reality crashing down. "You have a home with your husband." My father said, his voice final, "Go back and work it out." I didn't. I got back in my car, drove until I found a cheap motel, and cried until I was hollow. The next morning, I called my closest friend from college, Rachel. Without a second's hesitation, she said, "Get here now." I lived on her couch for a month, With her support, I found a lawyer, a fierce woman who took one look at my case and said, "We'll nail him." David fought the divorce, claiming we could reconcile. He sent flowers, endless emails, left voicemails dripping with faux remorse. My parents echoed his sentiments in sporadic, guilt-tripping messages. Don't throw away a decade over a mistake. Grace is your blood. She's suffering. Be the bigger person. I blocked them all, every single one. The divorce proceedings were brutal, but my lawyer was a pit bull. David, keen to avoid a drawn-out court battle that would expose his affair with my sister, eventually settled fairly. I got the house, which I sold immediately, using the money as a down payment for a small, sunny apartment that was mine alone. I built a fortress of silence around myself and my parents. At family events, a cousin's wedding, a grandparent's birthday, we moved like ghosts past each other. No words, just a chilling, mutual avoidance. They never apologized. I never asked them to. In the quiet of my new life, I realized I didn't miss them. I missed the idea of parents I never truly had. 5 years passed. My business flourished. I found a joy in my independence I never knew was possible. And then I met James. It was at a charity art auction. I was there supporting a client. He was there because his family's foundation was a major donor. He wasn't like the sleek, corporate types I often met. He was tall, with kind eyes and a disarming smile, and he spent 10 minutes talking to me about the use of color in a particular abstract piece before even asking my name. I was smitten. He asked me out for coffee the following week. Our relationship unfolded slowly, beautifully. He was steady, honest, and communicated in a way that felt like a foreign language after David's manipulations. After a year, he took me to meet his family. That's when I understood the scale of his world. I knew he came from money. But I hadn't grasped that the right foundation was a philanthropic powerhouse, that his father was a name in newspapers, that their estate wasn't just a big house, but a landmark. James was the unassuming, deeply private heir who ran the foundation's environmental wing. He was embarrassed by the ostentation, dedicated to his work. I loved him for who he was, not his name. His family, to their immense credit, loved me for me. His mother, Eleanor, a sharp, elegant woman, took me under her wing. "James has never been this happy," she told me once, and it meant more than any blessing. When James proposed on a wind-swept cliff overlooking the ocean, it was simple and perfect. I said yes, crying tears of pure, undiluted joy. A few days later, swept up in happiness, I posted a picture of my ring on social media, my hand clasped in James's. I'd long since removed my family from my accounts, but the world, especially the small-town world I came from, is a sieve. The first contact came not even 72 hours later. An email from my mother. "Dear Anna, we heard the wonderful news about your engagement. Congratulations. We are so happy for you. We have regretted the distance between us every single day for the past 5 years. We were wrong. We were foolish and listened to the wrong people. We would be honored if you would allow us to make it up to you, to be a part of your wedding and your new life. We love you." It was like reading a script written for a different daughter. The cynicism in me, forged in that doorway 5 years prior, flared. Where was this regret when I was sobbing on a motel bed, when I spent my first Christmas alone? I didn't reply. A second email arrived a week later. This one was different. "Anna, we've learned a bit about your fiancé, James Wright. What an impressive young man from an extraordinary family. We are so proud of the woman you've become, moving in such elevated circles. It's because of the respect we have for James's family that we feel even more compelled to bridge this gap. To have our daughter become part of such a distinguished lineage is beyond our wildest dreams. Please, let's talk." There it was. The mask slipped. It wasn't me they were proud of. It was my address book, my elevated circles. Their regret was monetized. I felt a hot surge of disgust. I showed James the emails. His face darkened. He knew the whole history. He held me as I trembled with a mix of rage and old hurt. "You don't owe them a thing," he said, his voice low and firm. Not a single word. I blocked their email addresses. For a few days there was peace. Then, one evening, the doorbell rang. James was working late. I looked through the peephole, and my blood ran cold. There they stood, my mother and father, older, grayer, holding a bouquet of lilies. My favorite flower, a detail they'd remembered, a detail they'd weaponized. I didn't want to open the door, but a lifetime of conditioning, a fear of my father's disapproval, made my hand turn the knob. I didn't step aside to let them in. "Anna," my mother breathed, her eyes instantly filling with tears. "You look beautiful. What are you doing here? How did you get this address?" "We just wanted to see you," my father said, his voice that familiar blend of authority and faint reproach, "to apologize in person." The emails were apology enough. "I have nothing to say to you." I tried to close the door, but my father's foot subtly edged forward. "Please, Anna, 5 minutes. We're still your parents." The argument that followed was a rerun of every painful dynamic of my childhood, now amplified by the context of their abandonment. They offered apologies that immediately wrapped themselves in justifications. We were misled. Grace was so manipulative. David had us convinced. When I remained silent, arms crossed, my father's patience snapped. "You've always been so stubborn, Anna. So proud. Has this engagement to a wealthy man made you too good for your own family now?" That was the trigger. "Get out," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Now." My father's face purpled. "You see? This attitude. This is what David complained about. This coldness. No wonder he sought comfort elsewhere." I was about to unleash 5 years of pent-up fury when a strong arm slid around my shoulders. James had arrived home, silent as a shadow. He must have heard everything from the hallway. His presence was a solid wall of support. "Mr. and Mrs. Evans," he said, his tone icy and polite, a tone I'd never heard him use before. "I believe Anna asked you to leave." My father, emboldened by his anger, turned on James. "You should know what you're getting into. Son, she drove her first husband away. She's incapable of compromise. She'll put her career, her pride, before you every time. Just ask David and Grace. They're happily married with 2 children now, a real family." The air left my lungs. James's arm tightened around me. James didn't raise his voice. He looked my father dead in the eye. "The only thing I need to know is how Anna takes her coffee in the morning and what makes her laugh after a long day. The opinions of a man who chose his daughter's betrayer over his own child and the betrayer herself are less than irrelevant to me." And for the record, he continued, his voice dropping to a razor-sharp edge, "the fact that you're standing here, not to genuinely repent, but because you've done a financial background check on me, tells me everything I need to know about your character. The distinguished lineage you're so eager to leech off of wants nothing to do with you. Now, get off our property before I have you removed." He shut the door firmly in their stunned faces. I collapsed against him, shaking. He held me until the shaking stopped. "I'm so sorry," he murmured into my hair. "You should never have had to hear that." The next morning, the fallout began. My phone rang. It was my paternal uncle, a man I'd always respected. "Anna, what in God's name happened? Your parents are heartbroken. They said your fiancé threatened them, boasted about his wealth, humiliated them at their own daughter's doorstep." I explained succinctly the history and the triggering comment about David and Grace. There was a long pause. I didn't know they said that about Grace," he said, sounding weary. That's unconscionable. But Anna, James, the things he said about money, about lineage, it's not a good look. You can't let a man disrespect your family like that, no matter the past. The call set a pattern. Over the next week, other relatives trickled in with similar messages. The narrative had been carefully shaped by my parents. The ungrateful daughter, corrupted by new money, let her arrogant fiancé insult her humble, repentant family. The fact that they had provoked it, that they had spewed venom first, was conveniently omitted. The pressure was designed to make me doubt myself, to make me feel that in protecting my peace, I had become the villain. James and I talked for hours. We decided on a unified front. No contact, no justification, no engagement with the drama. Our wedding would be our own. We hired a security coordinator for the event, just in case. I mourned not for the parents I had, but for the final, feeble hope that they could ever be the parents I needed. 2 months before the wedding, they came back. It was a Saturday afternoon. James was at a foundation meeting. I saw them through the window and didn't answer the door. I spoke through the intercom. Please leave. I will call the police. Anna, wait. My mother's voice was strained, desperate. We're not here to argue. We're here to surrender. I stayed silent. My father's voice, older, frielier than I remembered, came through. We were wrong. Not just then, but now. We came here last time wanting forgiveness on our terms. We exposed ourselves. James was right. We were impressed by his family, and we used that as an excuse to force our way back in. It was shameful. My mother took over, her voice breaking. We don't expect you to let us in. We don't expect an invitation to the wedding. We just want you to know that we are sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. For everything. For not believing you. For not protecting you. For choosing everyone else's comfort over your pain. We will spend the rest of our lives being sorry. And if you never speak to us again, we will understand. We just needed to say it, with no strings attached. It was the first apology that contained no blame shifting, no self-pity. It hung in the static of the intercom. I felt no warmth, no sudden urge to forgive. The wound was too old, too deep, but the seething anger I'd carried it shifted slightly. It didn't vanish, but it lost a fraction of its weight. I hear you, I said finally, my voice flat. Thank you for saying that. Now, please respect my need for space. I need you to leave me alone. Of course, my mother whispered. Of course. Be happy, Anna. Be so happy. I heard their footsteps retreating. When James came home, I told him. He was cautious. Words are easy, my love. Patterns are harder to break. I agreed. Their apology changed nothing about my present, but it slightly altered the landscape of my past. It was an admission, finally, that the fault line had not been in me. My wedding was a dream, held at the right family's country estate. It was elegant, joyful, and filled with people who genuinely loved us. James's family embraced me utterly. As I danced with my new husband under a canopy of twinkling lights, I felt a completeness I'd never imagined possible. The absence of my family was a quiet, acknowledged space, not a gaping hole. A week after returning from our honeymoon in Italy, I got a text from an unknown number. We heard you had a beautiful wedding. We are so glad. We wish you and James a lifetime of love and joy. You deserve it. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed a simple reply. Thank you. I didn't save the number. I didn't unblock the old ones. The bridge was not rebuilt. But the war, it seemed, was over. They had finally laid down their weapons of blame and entitlement. I had long since laid down my weapon of desperate hope. What remained was a cold, distant truce across a wide chasm. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, perhaps not ever. But it was peace. And for now, in my sunlit new life with James, peace was more than enough.